Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Today in Srimadbhagavatam, just from Srimadbhagavatam, this series, we are covering a beautiful verse from 4th canto. And this verse is spoken by Lord Shiva himself. So he's revealing some of his qualities through this verse and, of course, the glories of the Lord. So please join us in the recitation of invocation mantras. I'll quickly share my screen. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiryet. Shavatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shamana Kirtanaha Hridayantastho Bhadrani Vidunoti Suhasatam Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatiruttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam 4.3.23, this is Lord Shiva. He has already had conflict with Daksha, his father-in-law. And actually, his father-in-law had conflict with him. Lord Shiva never considered him, as a conflicting personality or as a personality who he had issues with. And so here he is conversing with Sati. So please join us in the recitation of this mantra, this verse. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, verse 3, chapter 3, verse 23. Sattvam vishuddham vasudeva shabditam yad iyate tatra pumana pavrataha sattve cha tasmin bhagwan vasudevo hi adukshajo me namasa vidhiyate. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I am always engaged in offering obeisances to Lord Vasudeva in pure Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is always pure consciousness in which the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Vasudeva, is revealed without any covering. Purport: the living entity is constitutionally pure. Asangahyayam Purushaha. In the Vedic literature, it is said that the soul is always pure and uncontaminated by material attachment. The identification of the body with the soul is due to misunderstanding. So this misunderstanding is going to be the topic today. As soon as one is fully Krishna conscious, it is to be understood that one is in his pure, original, constitutional position. This state of existence is called Shuddha Sattva, which means that it is transcendental to the material qualities. Since this Shuddha Sattva existence is under the direct action of the internal potency, in this state the activities of material consciousness stop. For example, when iron is put into a fire, it becomes warm, and when red hot, although it is iron, it acts like fire. Similarly, when copper is surcharged with electricity, its action as copper stops, it acts as electricity. Bhagavad Gita 14.26 also confirms that anyone who engages in unadulterated devotional service to the Lord is at once elevated to the position of pure Brahman. Mam chayovya bicharena bhakti yogena sevate saguna samtityatan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Therefore, Shuddha Sattva is described in this verse is the transcendental position, which is technically called Vasudeva. Vasudeva is also the name of the person from whom Krishna appears. This verse explains that the pure state is called Vasudeva because in that state, Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is revealed without any covering. To execute unadulterated devotional service, therefore, one must follow the rules and regulations of devotional service without desire to gain material profit by fruitive activities or mental speculation. And further pure devotional service aspects are described. So please join us in Guru Pranati. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshtarine Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripa tadaham vande Shri Gurum Dina Taranam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So raise your hand if you have been misunderstood in your life, where people have thought of you in a different way. I don't see anyone raising their hand. Well, we all have times in our lives that we have been misunderstood. Yes, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Monika Mataji. Thank you, Slakshana Mataji. And so this is a fact of life. And here, great Vaishnava, Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu, Lord Shiva, he is the greatest of all Vaishnavas. And he is misunderstood. Well, we can look at so many personalities that are misunderstood. When we look at Krishna himself, before his birth, he was misunderstood by Kamsa, his own maternal uncle, who was seeing Krishna not as his nephew, but as his death personified. So again, this is a big misunderstanding. And so he became enemy of Krishna. And he became fearful of Krishna for that fact. Well, Krishna, when we look at in his Damodar Leela, sometimes he's misunderstood even by Mother Yashoda. She is not seeing him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. She is seeing him as his Lalla. And so much so that she is deciding to chastise him. So if we remember, previously Lord has shown when he opened his mouth, when she wanted to see if he has eaten dirt, at that time she said, oh, you have taken dirt. Balaram is blaming you. Balaram is generally on your side. Yet at the same time, he is saying that Krishna has eaten dirt. So she said, open your mouth so I can see if you have eaten or not. And when he opened his mouth, she could see the whole universe. She could see, even all the valleys, mountains, various planets, and even herself, and she holding Krishna in her lap. And she was bewildered. What is this? So for a moment, Lord had lifted the curtain of Yoga Maya, the internal potency, and she was able to see his glories. Yet at the same time, Lord saw that this is interfering with her emotion of Vatsalya Bhava, with her motherly mood. So immediately brought that covering back so that because he wanted to have sweet reciprocation, the exchange. So our lives is all about exchanges. What kind of interactions and communications and feelings we are sharing with each other. This is what makes life so beautiful. A house is a house when it has four walls and a roof. But it becomes a home when it has people who love each other, come together and stay together. So a happy family eats together, sleeps together, sings together, as well as engages in services together. That is what makes this world beautiful. When we do kirtans, everyone comes in that mood of praying to the Lordship, calling out to the Lordship. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yet at the same time, the fact of life is that this material world is a place of dukkhalayam and ashashvatam. There is constant misery and there is impermanence. So even though we are looking at happiness from the external factor, there are misunderstandings. And they say, sometimes people say this is because of Maya. No, it is, Maya is material energy. She is jad. She cannot move. It is we who are influenced by the senses. We think I'm this body. And the moment we think I'm this body, that's when the whole cycle starts. So who's the doer? We are the doer. Sometimes, yes, we have seen the enemy, and the enemy is us. Sometimes we see this aspect and suddenly we become fearful because there is a general tendency to glorify oneself or one's belongings and one's gathering. Even Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he reveals that when he would go and see opulent worship of the Lord in other religions, he would say, "Oh, my dear Lord, I cannot believe that you are worshipped in so many wonderful ways by all living entities." Yet at the same time, current times, we see sometimes people are saying, "Oh, we are the best," and they are saying that, the other side is saying they are the best. But in reality, in Vaishnava Dharma, we are understanding Tranada Peshunichena Taruropi Saishuna Mani Namanadena Kirtaniya Sadahi. That we have to be more humble than the grass on the street, more tolerant than the tree. So again, we have to take this in proper feelings. That's the important aspect. Sometimes people say it, but they cannot follow it. So it's also very important for us to be able to follow what we are saying. So here today we are discussing how Lord Shiva, he is misunderstood. Lord Shiva, the most misunderstood pure devotee, right? So this, in today's, we are sharing the gems of Srimadbhagavatam, how Lord Shiva, even though he is misunderstood, his own consciousness is at Shuddha Sattva, at Vasudeva consciousness. So that is what this verse is revealing. This is Lord Shiva revealing to his wife, Satish, who is the youngest daughter of Daksha. And she wants to go to her father's place where there are great sacrifices are being performed. And she's seeing that all these heavenly ladies and with their husbands, they are going. My mother and her sisters will be there, my sisters will be there, and I'm missing all the association. She's saying, "My dear Lord, I want to go and visit one more time my birthplace." That's also very important, how she is placing her plea in front of Lord Shiva. She's saying, "I have desired to go and see my birthplace," because one's birthplace becomes very dear to people, so much so that sometimes they say that it is pujaniya, it is worshipable. And that is good till we understand that, yes, this is where we actually had humble beginnings, and now we are in such and such journey in our life, and we are grateful for all the blessings that have come our way. So here Lord Shiva's response is that I am always in pure Vasudeva consciousness. And I'm always offering worshipable obeisances. That is also very important. It is not just obeisances. He is saying, "Here the kshajo me namusa vidhiyate." Vidhiyate means worship. So his obeisances are endowed with worship. And he's worshipping what? In the previous verse, he's revealing that he's worshipping not the person, but the super soul in the person. Now, sometimes we see that the Brahmanvadis or the impersonalists, they misinterpret this very statement of Lord Shiva. They're saying, "Oh, so the other person, the super soul is in the person. So the other person is considered the supreme from that perspective." We can be, when we are clean in proper Shuddha Sattva state, we can be godly. We cannot become God. God's position is already taken. Which reminds us that even Lord Ram, he was misunderstood by Kekai. Bharat, he was misunderstood by all the Ayodhya Vasis, the residents of Ayodhya. After Ram was sent to, for 14 years, he was sent to the jungle. He left. So all the residents of Ayodhya, they were thinking, "Oh, it is because of Bharat. He is the one who caused Ram to take to this exile." So these things happen. These things happen in life. But here, Lord Shiva is setting an example how devotees have to behave. Dhruv Maharaj, he was just a 5-year-old boy. He was misunderstood by his father and mother and their stepmother. So Ruchi immediately pushed him off the lap, and she said, "Oh, you cannot sit on your father's lap unless you take birth from my womb." So that's how she is, revealing that to be able to get the position, of your father. And here, Dhruv Maharaj was deeply hurt by this saying. So we see that devotees are time and again misunderstood. Prahlad Maharaj, he was misunderstood by his own father, Hiranyakashipu, who wanted to, teach him not to take to bhakti, but, take to hypocrisy, the political mindset, the materialistic mindset, to make differences among living entities as friends and enemies. And that's not Shuddha Sattva. That's in a mode of passion going down to mode of ignorance. Yet at the same time, Prahlad Maharaj, he was always in Vasudeva, consciousness. He was always remembering the Lord, and he was always trying to help his father. Now somebody could say, well, Prahlad Maharaj was able to reveal back and tell his father that, you should, a householder is like in a dark well because of the materialistic binding, and such a person who cannot control one's mind, even though they have controlled the whole universe, should leave home and go to the forest, because this state of staying at home in this materialistic state is very dangerous. Prahlad Maharaj, when he said that, Kashipu, actually he was ready to listen, because what did he say in the first meeting? When Kayadu prepared Prahlad Maharaj in a very nice dress, and she brought him in front of Kashipu. And sometimes when we see our children, after coming from school, they have been studying, they come home and we say, okay, what have you learned? We're expecting Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, those kind of, poems to be recited. But here, Prahlad Maharaj is saying very strong words, that one who has not conquered the mind should go to the forest. So, of course, not take the mind with you. It means that we have to purify our consciousness. That's what he's revealing to Hiranyakashipu. And Hiranyakashipu, first time, he just says, takes it lightly. You know what? It seems like some Vaishnavas are visiting your Gurukul. Shanda and Amarka, the sons of Shukracharya, they are forewarned by Hiranyakashipu. You should be on watch. Don't let the kids get spoiled. And then second time when he meets Prahlad Maharaj, he says, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Pada Sevanam Archanam Vandam Dasyam Sakyam Atma Nivedanam. So the 9 processes of devotional service are revealed by Prahlad Maharaj, and that is shocking to Hiranyakashipu. So he's now upset with Prahlad Maharaj. He's saying, oh, this son of mine has become a devotee of my enemy. So this is how materialistic looks at things as friends and enemy. And this is how Daksha was looking at things, as friends and enemy. Somebody could say, why didn't Lord Shiva directly approach Daksha and reveal to him that, I am your son-in-law and I'm always in Vasudeva consciousness? Well, because Daksha was not ready to listen. Why is Daksha not ready to listen? Why is Daksha in such a state? Sometimes we see two people, they are just right next to each other and they are fighting, and when they are having conflict, they are speaking in very loud voice. So disciple asked his spiritual master, he said, my dear Gurudev, these two people seem to be friends in the past, but now they are fighting with each other and they're right next to each other. Why are they shouting so loudly? Why are they, speaking so loudly? So the spiritual master simply says, my dear disciple, even though they're next to each other, their hearts have gone apart. They have gone far away from each other. And so to be able to hear the person, they are calling out in this manner. This is what happens in a material consciousness. Because when we are very close to devotees, we can just quickly whisper and the other person understands. Sometimes we don't even have to speak anything. We just look at the person and make some gesture, and the person understands what we are trying to say. Because now, even though there may be a great distance between the two persons, their hearts are very close to each other. These are some subtle aspects of life. And Lord Shiva is revealing this to his grieving wife. Because why is she grieving? Because she is not able to go to her father's place. And she wants to go and visit her father and mother, her sisters. She wants to have such wonderful interaction with them. So today we are seeing the pure devotional consciousness of Lord Shiva that is being revealed. And it helps us practically cultivate that consciousness in modern life. In this current times, which is Kali age, yet at the same time, the facilities are much greater than they have been in the past. And so we will be looking at how Lord Shiva, even though being disrespected by Daksha, instead of retaliating, He simply offers namasa vidhiyate, obeisances to Lord Vasudeva. And he's saying that Lord is uncovered. So this pure Vasudeva consciousness, reveals the Lord who is completely uncovered. Now, this acharyas reveal that this can be looked at it this way, that Vasudeva and Devaki, they were the parents of Lord Krishna. And because of Vasudeva, Lord Krishna took birth. So he appeared in this material world, yet at the same time, he was uncovered. His glories are uncovered. So if we can look at it from that metaphorical way as well. And that Lord Shiva, his heart is always meditating on Krishna, not as a yogi, but as a bhakta, as a devotee of the Lord. Vaishnava nam yatha Shambhu. Vaishnava means a devotee of Lord Vishnu or Krishna. So here, Lord Shiva is, what role is he taking? He is taking the role of a devotee, that he is the greatest devotee. Yes, he is a great yogi too. And sometimes Goddess Parvati, which is the next birth of Sati, she has a complaint that, Lord Vishnu, he resides in Vaikuntha, such opulent place. Lord Brahma, he resides in Satyaloka, such an opulent place. And we are on this Kailash Parvat. We don't have anything. So Lord Shiva, can we have better home? Nice, maybe our own city at least. And Lord Shiva, just by his thought, just from his mind, he creates a very opulent, very beautiful city right on the next, to the bank of Ganges. And Goddess Parvati, she is very jubilant seeing that, yes, this is a beautiful city. So Lord Shiva says, Devi, won't you like to have an inauguration? Like, when you buy a new house, you do the housewarming, house welcoming, event, and you invite all hosts of people. She says, of course, my dear Lord, that's very much in the, list to do. And so she performs a very nice opening ceremony of this beautiful city known as Kashi. And as she's offering to different brahmanas, one of the brahmana, she's giving various charities. So one of the brahmana says, oh, my dear goddess, Parvati, I have a desire. Could you give me some charity? She says, of course, what do you want? He says, may I have the city? And then she offers him the city, and she's back with her husband, Lord Shiva, back on Kailash. Yet at the same time, the sweetness of this interaction is telling that where Lord Shiva's heart is. He's not looking, he's always looking for the welfare of all humanity. And of course, his wife is included in that. And he is carrying out his statements in pure consciousness for everyone's benefit. Shiva means all auspicious. So today we'll be looking at it from the perspective of this acronym, Shiva, how does it relate to us? And how can we really, bring it in light for our consciousness? So, sure, or you can say as Shuddha Sattva. So we have to live in pure consciousness. And that's what we'll be looking at from this life of Lord Shiva. How we can transcend the modes and function with purified existence, where Vasudeva is revealed. So Lord is revealed in our heart. So we understand that this body that we have is a temple of the Lordship, and that our main deity is Lord Vasudeva himself. Vasudeva has two meanings. One is, of course, son of Vasudeva. Second is one who is present everywhere. And when we look at it from the perspective of one who is present everywhere, omnipresent, then we understand that it becomes a secondary name, because present everywhere sometimes maybe look as an impersonalism perspective. But Lord, he is everywhere in reality, while he is also in his abode. I refers to internal samadhi and external service. So internal meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So how Lord Shiva, he is absorbed in the meditation of the Lord internally while practically serving in this world. So we can look at his example as how he is doing that so that we can carry out following in his footsteps. Anukaran is not the focus. Anusharan is the focus. Anukaran is imitating someone. We don't want to imitate Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva, he took poison, and some of his, bhaktas, not the disciples, some of his bhaktas, they tried to take ganja and all kind of intoxicating things, abominable things, showing that, oh, Lord Shiva is doing that, so we are his, followers, so we'll do that. No, that is anukaran. They're trying to imitate, and the only thing that's going to lead them is destruction of this precious human birth that we have received so gracefully by the mercy of the Lordship. So we have to see from his perspective that yes, his actions are for the welfare. Why did he take this poison? He took the poison halahal, which occurred during the churning of the ocean, so that the demigods and the demons, they don't get destroyed, the Daityas. Daityas means the descendants of Diti. Adityas means the descendants of Aditi. So these two are actually sons of or descendants of Kashyapa Muni, yet at the same time they are in conflict. So we have to look from that perspective as how Lord Shiva is gracefully carrying out his activities in Shuddha Sattva. And he's revealing this to Mother Sati, his wife. And he's saying that I'm always meditating. So one of the important aspect is, when did the conflict start? When Daksha first came to the assembly before grants, 1,000 years of sacrifice was to be performed. And everybody stood up except for Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Then after everyone's, sat down, Daksha, he was nicely, sweetly welcomed by Lord Brahma. Yet his focus was that Lord Shiva, who's my son-in-law, did not get up. Oh, and that was the beginning of that misunderstanding, because he did not know that Lord Shiva is constantly meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And one of the important aspects in this particular verse, Lord Shiva reveals, is that he is telling Sati, his wife, that when we pay obeisances to another person, then actually we are paying obeisances to the super soul within that person, not to the person, not to the body. Because body is just one of the elements of this material nature. We have to realize that there is soul and super soul. So when we understand from the super soul perspective, the importance is, of course, not just the super soul, but also the soul aspect is there. That the soul is right next to the Lordship and is very dear. So all living entities are very dear to the Lordship. And so when we pay respects to the Father, to the Supreme Father, we of course pay respects to the children. And we stay respectful and loving to all the children. So he's showing that yes, even though he did not get up physically, but in his meditation, in his feelings, he was worshipfully paying obeisances to even Daksha. So there was no fault of Lord Shiva, but he was misunderstood. Sometimes when the other party is not ready to understand, then it's very difficult for them to understand. And Daksha was engaged by Lord Brahma. What was Lord Brahma's main responsibility? That he has to increase the progeny in this universe. Yes, all these planets are there and so forth, and he has to increase progeny. So he was engaging all the Prajapatis, and Daksha was the head of all the Prajapatis, progenitors, who would, have children and descendants and further expand the population in this world. That was the duty of Lord Brahma. So he was encouraging his children who were engaged in the same duty to further, advance his goal, right? So sometimes people are very much focused on their service. Sometimes even devotees, we see sometimes devotees say, oh, worship of the Supreme Lord, temple worship is most important. Some people say, no, book distribution is more important. Let's do book distribution. And then some people say, no, festivals times is more important to have, fundraising and those kind of activities. And then, there's sometimes so many Ishta Goshti is going on, it turns into Mushta Goshti, just like in this case. While we are trying to serve the Lord, we have to understand that when someone is serving the right foot, pressing the right foot of the Father, another one is pressing the left foot of the Father, both children are actually trying to serve the Lord. Just because they become envious of the other person, they start hitting the leg, that's not going to be pleasurable to the Lord, right? So for the Father, it will be painful. What are you doing? You're fighting among yourselves and giving pain to me. So we have to be in proper consciousness, Shuddha Sattva state. Now, when we talk about Shuddha Sattva state, we see Dhruv Maharaj, even though he was in a Shuddha Sattva state after seeing the Lordship, he was moved by the emotions, right? Because Uttam Shloka, when he went to the forest, A yaksha killed him. Uttam Shloka's mother. Uttam Shloka was his half brother, half cousin. And his mother Suruchi, she went to the forest and she burned in the fire of the forest. So here we see that even Dhruv Maharaj, because he associated it with this relationship, that this is my stepmother, this is my half brother, half cousin, he actually attacked the whole Yaksha Nagari, which is Kuvera's place. And he killed so many Yakshas. And at that time, Manu had to come down to reveal to him that what he's doing is not right. Even though sometimes we may be blessed, we may get bewildered by this material energy because of our affection towards some living entities. We have to have a more wide perspective. And when he stopped, actually, Kuvera was happy that, Dhruv Maharaj stopped. Here at the same time, the fight that happened between the Yakshas and Dhruv Maharaj, that was more of a Kshatriya against Kshatriya. And when they are in a battlefield fighting with each other, the Kshatriya Dharma reveals that if one dies, they get elevated to a higher planetary system. So again, from the bodily perspective, yes, they're getting injuries and they are dying and all that stuff. But in reality, the soul progresses further. That has to be also understood. Sometimes people look at the bodies and then they become bewildered. And that's material consciousness. We have to come to that level of Shuddha Sattva with the instructions provided by great Vaishnavas like Lord Shiva. And here, in this verse, so many amazing aspects are being revealed by Lord Shiva. Now, how do we understand internal samadhi? So we don't have to make a show outside, right? We have to carry out our services externally. Yes, we have to carry out a conduct externally and make it as an offering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is internal samadhi. All actions should be offered to the Lordship. Sometimes people say, oh, but Lord Krishna didn't say that. He basically said, Patna Pushpam Phalam Toyam Yome Bhakta Parechati Tadham Bhaktyo Pritam Ashtami Prayatatmana. So in devotion, a devotee would offer me Patra Pushpa Phalatoya. Would offer me Patra, which leaves, Pushpa, flowers, Phala, fruits, and Toyam, water. And I will accept it. That's what he's asking for. No, actually, he's also asking for Manmana Bhav Bad Bhakto Badhyaji Mam Namaskuru Mam Eve Shyasi Satyam Te Prati Jane Priyasine. So always think of me, Manmana. Now sometimes people say that's very difficult. Right? Then become Madbhakto, become my devotee. There is lower possibility. Yes, you can become a devotee. And as a devotee, you have to just carry out, observe 4 regulative principles and chant minimum 16 rounds, and on special occasions, 25 or more rounds. Well, these are the minimum. Maximum is unlimited. So again, you can continue to chant as long as you are in the Shuddha Sattva. You have to understand that consciousness is important even while chanting. Otherwise, it leads to offenses to the chanting of the holy name. And then if you can't even do that, Madhyaji, carry out my worship. Now that doesn't take as much time as being a devotee. That only is like 15 to half an hour minutes even. So again, in 15 minutes, you can finish Aarti, or with preparation and so forth, half an hour, you can finish an Aarti. Well, sometimes people say, even that is very difficult. My life is very busy. Now, Mam Namaskuru, just paying obeisances, few seconds, we can do that. But then Lord Krishna did say that, all activities that we perform should be performed as an offering to him. Yat karoshi yadashnasi yad jihoshi tadasi yat tapasyasi kanteya tat kurishwa madarpanam is revealing right after Patram Pushpam Phalabduyam, 926, he's revealing in the very next verse, 927. Yat karoshi yadashnasi yad jihoshi tadasi. So he's saying that whatever activities you do, whatever you accept, whatever you sacrifices you perform, whatever austerities you perform, whatever charity you give away, all they should be Madar Pranam, should be carried out as an offering to me, should be offered to me in that mood. So again, this is Shuddha Sattva consciousness with internal samadhi and externally performing services. Now, we all carry out services, and sometimes there's a tendency that I did this. Well, we have to again come to that Vasudeva centered life. That what did Lord Krishna say to Arjun? Nimitramatam bhavisave sachin. You are just an instrument. So in this battlefield, except for you Pandavas and few other warriors, everyone will be destroyed. And I've already carried this out, but you can experience the glories of this by engaging in service. We're just an instrument. So we are also just an instrument. And we can really come to the level of Shuddha Sattva when we engage in internal samadhi by carrying out our external services with pure consciousness, which is Vasudev consciousness, when we have Vasudev-centered life. Who is in the center? Lord Vasudev. Lord Krishna is in the center. We are not in the center. That is a very important aspect. And to be able to keep him in the center, we have to have A, which is awareness, or dukshija, surrender. We have to have proper surrender. So we humbly bow to the unknowable Lord through faith and devotional action. So again, unknowable because Lord is Hari Ananta, Hari Katha Ananta. He is unlimited. How can we know him? Because we are limited. How can we, just like a size of a pot, put in ourselves the whole of ocean? And he's vast, greater than ocean. So we have to look at things in proper perspective. So let's dive into these various perspectives in our life as how we can come to the proper consciousness, right? Sure, stood for Shuddha Sattva, live in pure consciousness, which is enabled through internal samadhi and external service, which is I, and then V is, we have to be able to do that, we have to have Vasudeva-centered life. All our activities should be as an offering to him. All things that we are accepting should be as an offering to him. Everything that we are, yajna, dana, and tapa, sacrifice, austerity, and charity we perform should be for his pleasure. And so all these things, how can we carry out? When we are fully surrendered. Taradapi shunichena tarurapi saishuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. Amanina is very important. Not expecting respect from others, but ready to give all respect to others. And such a state of mind, in a humble mood, we can chant the holy name and carry out our services in Vasudev consciousness eternally, because that is surrender. And surrender has 6 principles. We all understand this, but it's very important to, when we look at these principles, how we practically applying these principles in our life. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya vajanam rakshishati vishwaso gopatitve varnam tatha atmanikshepa kalpane shadvidha sharnagati. So how do we surrender? There are 6 limbs of surrender. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur elaborately explains these 6 limbs. Anukulyasya sankalpa. So whatever is favorable is for our devotion to keep Vasudev-centered life. To keep Vasudev consciousness, we have to accept those things. And pratikul, which is against this mindset, against this samadhi, against this meditation, should be rejected. Pratikul is the varjanam. Rakshishyati iti vishwasa. Lord Krishna will protect us. Gopate tuve varnam tatha. He is our maintainer. Atmanikshepya, and we should offer everything for the pleasure of the Lordship. And Karparni, always stay humble in our hearts. So these are the 6 limbs of surrender. Now, how do we see these 6 limbs of surrender? There are so many wonderful examples we see. We see the example of Govardhan Leela, right? Even Indra, who was a devotee of the Lord, misunderstood Lord Krishna. He said, oh, this 7-year-old boy has become too puffed up and is deviating everyone's mind against my Indra Yajna, and is performing Yajna of a hill, Govardhan Hill, not knowing that actually Govardhan Hill is also Vishnu Tattva. So that's also very important. Govardhan Hill itself was misunderstood. It was sitting right there, and the Brajvasis were taking their cows and calves and onto Govardhan Hill without realizing that this is Vishnu Tattva. This is, he is the greatest of the devotees of the Lordship. Now, sometimes people get bewildered. Wait a minute, you talked about Vishnu Tattva, but then you're saying he's the greatest devotee of the Lordship? Yes, Lord Balaram is the Supreme Personality of Servitor Godhead. So again, Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he is in the enjoyer mood. But Lord Balaram is in the mood of servant. So he is in the mood of showing how do we serve. And that's why Lord Balaram is known as Adi Guru. Similarly, Govardhan Hill came out from the seed of the heart of Lord Krishna and is also at times reflected as expansion of Hanuman, of Balaram, because Balaram is the first expansion. And this Govardhan Hill is very dear to Radharani as well as to all the Vrajvasis because Krishna says so. So it is unconditional surrender that we have to understand being revealed here. When the other party is ready to understand in the conflict, we should not just stay quiet. We should try to clarify things. But sometimes devotees are very smart at clarifying things. When Ravan, he came to know Vibhishan has on his wall written Ram, 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 everywhere on his wall, in his ceilings, everywhere in his house. He's having Tulsi in front of the house. He's like, what? Your friend, you're an ally of my enemy? That's how he approached. But then he was still approaching like, you're my brother. How could you do this? This is how Ravan was approaching. Vibhishan said, no, 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 you misunderstood, my dear, elder brother Ravan. It actually says Ravan Mandodari. Ravan Mandodari. That's why Ra is for Ravan, Ma is for Mandodari. Ram, 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 Ram. Ravan was so impressed, he said, every house in Lanka should have Ram written on it. Now, that is the sweetness of a devotee who can even make, someone a demonic personality who was, of course, he was a Brahman. Ravan was a Brahman. Yet his mindset was that of a demon. He was saying, today I have defeated so and so, and tomorrow I'll defeat all the other ones. Everyone is praising me. So he was looking for his name, fame, and glories instead of Nam, Rup, Gun, Katha of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when demons are in this particular mindset, so it's a mindset. So again, we have to understand there is a Vasudev mindset. Just opposite to that is the Ravan's mindset, the materialistic mindset. So we have to make that distinction and make the transition because that transition can help us transform so that we can transcend from this material sky to the spiritual sky. So this material world will suddenly become a spiritual world when we are in Vasudev consciousness and we have Vasudev-centered life. So here, Lord Shiva is revealing, I'm always meditating. So there was not a single moment that he was not meditating. This shows to Sati, he's revealing that even when your father came, he felt that I did not get it. But I was paying obeisances to the super soul in his heart. So I'm not at fault, my dear wife. It is he who's seeing the external, coverings, and he's making an assumption that I'm being disrespectful. And he's saying such harsh words, which makes me morose. Because why does it make me morose? Just because Shiva is being blasphemous. Is that because sometimes people, when they call us names, we become morose, right? Because we are taking it on ourselves, on our actions. But in reality, that is their doing. If our actions are pure, in pure purpose, in pure aspects, we can just pray to the Lordship to please help those who are misunderstanding us. Trying to make an effort is only valid when the other party is ready to listen. If they're not ready to listen, that means our hearts have gone apart and shouting will not help. So it's better to take shelter of the Lordship and the devotees in that case. And that will help us elevate all the pain that comes from this conflict that comes in, right? So when we do regular japa, right, from Lord Shiva's mood, we can understand this regular japa has to be with a focused, attentive mind, and our offering of respect should still be there even though we are misunderstood. It's not that, oh, this person misunderstands, I'm not going to talk to that person. I'm not going to respect that person. That should never be the attitude. Rather, we should be seeing every situation as a platform for surrender. How does it help us surrender? Because every roadblock, sometimes people talk about what is the block? There's a roadblock. This is a block in my spiritual life. Actually, it's not a roadblock. It's actually a stepping stone. We just have to change our perspective. With Vasudeva consciousness, we can make that transition. And making Krishna the constant internal companion. Now, somebody could say, you're giving all examples from, Dwapar Yuga, Satyuga, Treta Yuga. What about the Kali Yuga examples? Well, we have Namacharya Haridas Thakur. He was misunderstood. He was considered, born in a Muslim family, and he was taken to the chanting. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him the title of Namacharya. He is the authority on the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And he was calling out 3 lakh names every day. Yet at the same time, he understood that others are considering him to be a Muslim born person. So again, his parents were Muslim. So he would not enter Jagannath temple so that others don't get disturbed. What to talk about him? Great Brahmanas, they were born Brahmanas, Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami. But being engaged in the service of Dabir, Nawab Hussain Shah, they were given different names, Muslim names. The Hindu community had outcasted them. They were Dabir Khas and Sakar Malik. Those were their names. Yet at the same time, when they became even the disciples of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they never entered Jagannath temple. Why? Because it would just disturb the mind of general populace. So they were in Vasudeva consciousness, Vasudeva Parayana, completely surrendered at the lotus feet of Lord Vasudeva, completely engaged in devotional service. And the service that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, he wanted to carry out the service of revealing all the wonderful places in Vrindavan. He entrusted them with that responsibility, and they came to Vrindavan and revealed all these places in Vrindavan that now in today's time we can so easily go, and with nice arrangement, we can easily visit all these places. So here we can see, sometimes we look at even some simple personalities in today's times. Shani, right? Saturn, he's the presiding deity of Saturn. Today is his birthday. How many of you are observing his birthday? Because he is also one of the most misunderstood person. His birth is, the very basis of his birth is to have the welfare of all humanity so that people can get moksha, people can get liberated. That's why his responsibility is to discipline. But materialists don't like discipline. They just want shortcuts. They just want name, fame, and glory in the shortest way possible. And when it comes to discipline, that means all proper process to be followed. They just defy that, and they just hate such a personality. They dislike such a personality. So while he is he and his brother, Yama is one who gives decision at the end of life. They are the most, fearful personalities to people who are not in Vasudeva consciousness, who are not Vasudeva Parayana, but who are in material consciousness. So we have to understand that we have to come to proper consciousness, then we can see the benefit, our own benefit. And this is a long-lasting benefit beyond this life, right? So we can think of some of the aspects, some introspection we can do. We can ask ourselves, who do I instinctively offer obeisance to in my day, right? Do I pay obeisances to my boss, or do I pay obeisances to my phone? Or do I pay obeisances to the comfort of home, or family, and so forth? Whose shelter am I taking, right? And what does pure consciousness look like for me at work, at home, at school, wherever I am? What does it look like to me? And when last did I feel like going to Krishna in gratitude spontaneously? Right? So we don't have to have the presence of deities in front of us to bow down. We can look at small happenings in our life and pray, oh my dear Lord, you are so grateful. You are giving me a chance to improve myself. My Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, he would reveal that the goal of life is not just to renounce the world, but to see Krishna in everything. That is true purity. Which reminds me of a beautiful interaction Srila Prabhupada when he had come to New York and he was staying. So at that time, Professor Howard, he was sitting with him, and Srila Prabhupada was simply typing on his typewriter Bhagavad Gita's translation. And suddenly, the professor, a young person, he was in North Carolina at a university. He was a professor. So here, Professor Howard said, I renounce the word. Srila Prabhupada stopped, looked at him, smiled. And then he simply said, you do not own the world. How can you renounce it? You can only renounce things that you own, right? So he was revealing this. And this revelation, Professor Howard, of course, he became one of the sannyasi disciples of Srila Prabhupada. His mind understood, completely enlightened. He paid obeisance to Srila Prabhupada and he left. And at that time, another devotee here entered. And he was having this doubt because our heart is so much filled with doubts. These doubts are like dark clouds that are stopping our vision to see the sun. It is this material consciousness that's stopping us to see the Lord Vasudev, who is actually uncovered when we are in pure consciousness. Sometimes we have to take help from devotees to, drive away these clouds. Just like Arjun, he was asking so many questions from Krishna so as to drive away these clouds. And he was at those times calling out Krishna as Madhusudana. You are the killer of Madhusudan, so you can kill all these doubts, clear up all these doubts for me. And he was saying, if Maya is also Krishna's energy, then how could there be so many bad things happening? Means again, Maya is Dukhalayam Shashvatam, it is pain giving, while Lord Krishna is Sukhalayam Shashvatam. He is Satchidananda Vigraha. Anadi Radhir Govinda Sarvakarar Karan. He is the cause of all causes. And how could he cause so much pain in this material world? How could he cause so much suffering to all the humanity? How could there be so much illness and sickness and tsunamis? And sometimes people think tsunamis is less than market rising and market crashing. So, that's someone's perspective. He was looking from that perspective. Srila Prabhupada, he said, very simple. There is no cloud on the sun, but the very reason we have cloud on earth is because of sun. The sun evaporates the water from the ocean and water bodies, and so these clouds are formed. And the very sun's energy is going in the wood as well. And the trees are also absorbing this energy. Yet at the same time, it comes out as fire. So while sun is the cause of clouds which cover him from our vision. So it's not that the sun gets covered by cloud because there is no cloud on sun. It is we who get covered by these clouds. And so we have to understand from that perspective. When we look at things, Shiva shows us how to remain cool and calm, even when the fire of insults and injustice is burning around us. This is what is being revealed in this verse. And His Holiness Ranna Swami, he has a beautiful saying that the most powerful person is not the one who controls others, but one who surrenders to Krishna in every circumstance. Every circumstance is an opportunity for us to seek shelter of Lord Krishna. And when you go to the Lord in your heart, your dignity rises higher than any crown of this world. So again, we have to understand that it helps us elevate higher. Sometimes people have this, they see Lord Shiva in meditation, and his general posture is meditating on Lord Sankarshan. So somebody could ask, why is Lord Shiva always meditating? Doesn't he get bored without Wi-Fi? Right? People, their Wi-Fi goes down, they get disturbed. They can't use, the various database services. So our response would be, he's got the original Om signal, right? Uninterrupted cosmic connection to Lord Vasudeva. Yes, he doesn't have any need for AirPods too, because he uses Shuddha Sattva. That's better than 5G networks. So true connection isn't external. It is in tuning into the frequency of divine consciousness.
Prabhuji, you wanted me to remind you about the
Yes.
time.
Thank
So
you. Thank you.
just letting you know, we
Yes.
have 5
Yes.
more minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Devi. So sometimes, people, they try to act like yogi because they see Lord Shiva in his yogic form, and they try to sit in samadhi like Lord Shiva, but they give up in 5 minutes. What is their expression? Well, this is boring, sitting, meditating for 5 minutes. Well, Lord Shiva himself said that, we have to be in proper consciousness. Are we having that consciousness? Things feel boring. Even chanting sometimes feel boring is because people bring their mind with them, which is constantly wandering, right? And so just don't sit like Lord Shiva, think like him too. That is a very important aspect. And so the real challenge is not outer stillness, but inner absorption. So today we covered the very lessons from the perspective of how we can, from the acronym of Shiva, where Shiva, Sha, stands for Shuddha Sattva, live in pure consciousness. I is for internal samadhi, internalizing our consciousness while externally carrying out our services for the pleasure of the Lordship, which is only possible when we have Va, which is Vasudeva-centered life. And to be able to do that, we have to have Adokshira surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So at this time, again, we can stop. Kantra Srimadbhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, and I will turn it over to Devi. Devi, would you like to add anything? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I was just appreciating a lot of points. Many of us are able to relate from day-to-day life. And so when we come across adversities in life, and we are also taking inspiration from teachings in the scriptures, from these beautiful stories, pastimes of the saintly souls, the topmost Vaishnavas. And at that time, we are really facing these tests. How much tolerance we can exercise, how much kindness we can still extend to others, even though we may be facing all the disrespect. And so that is a constant challenge for the practicing devotees. And that is why, when we chant, we learn to sit with patience and tolerance. All these qualities are put into test. The more we tolerate our flickering nature, our unstable nature, I'm taking a simple example. For example, all devotees, they want to chant every day. So prioritizing that service help us cultivate these qualities. That is a simple example. Similarly, working with other people as a team player, even in work environment, exercises a lot of these qualities. Working with a group of devotees on certain festivals, again, we are put under pressure. Not everything may be going in our way, and a devotee should be always, like you were explaining, Tranada Pisunichena, Tadura Pisahishra, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's beautiful teaching. We should tolerate everything, and we should depend on the Lord. So, examples of these great personalities like Lord Shiva and many other examples you took are our inspiration, and Prasadam has a big role to play on our consciousness. We should never forget that. So,
Prashadam means mercy.
yes,
So
the
mercy
blessed
is the
conscious, yeah. I think we can wrap up after checking if anyone has any questions or any comments. Anyone wants to add anything? You may do it right now before Prabhuji wraps up the call. I think we can chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra once, and by then, if nobody has anything to say, we can end the call.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare.
Hare.
Hare
Yes.
Krishna.
Yeah, yes, Prabhuji, you can go ahead and stop the recording and
Kantra Srimadbhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Kori Vaishnavinda ki jai, Nitai Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bo.
Hari Bol.
Have a wonderful week in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. Om Tat Sat.